And good morning for another morning coffee with Marcaida. I know it's been a while. I tuned in a little or tuned out a little. Basically, I took some time off and I was with family. And one of the things I learned as we were taking a family trip was that same commercial where you saw the guy driving and everybody is tuned out, listening to their phones and everything. And I thought about, how things change in our life that are necessary changes. These necessary changes are the evolution of our lives. And technology is supposed to make things easier and smarter, but not necessarily the better. Case in point is our cell phones that we use all day. We're tuned in all the time to our cell phones because it allows us to either get involved in communication highway, but directly talk to people, but all of this is done in cyberspace, like what I'm doing right now. There is no way I can communicate with so many people at one time without this technology of my phone. But we also have a sense of balance. By being tuned into you, I'm no longer being tuned into the people that are actually around me. And that was very interesting when I was taking that road trip with my family, is that in the car, we were all tuned into our phones, but basically tuned out that we couldn't talk to each other. And so I thought a lot about how that affects the way we live today. It is a necessary evil. An evil because basically, it takes away from the connection of real people. When you see everybody walking on the streets, actually it's a hazard. As a martial artist and one who always talks about awareness, it's one of the very tools that people use not to become aware. It's very hard to hear things when you're tuned in to your headphones as you're walking around. A lot of people have been walking and bumping into things or walking and falling into holes. And some have actually had some fatal accidents because they're looking on their phones, texting while driving, or looking at their phones while even walking, the simple thing of walking. So that can that presents its own hazards. And people should be aware that these are problems we never had before because it was not exactly parts of our lives. But it is an issue now. So what are you going to do about it? You need to be aware of these things and make it a safe thing to do, not just add problems. It's supposed to make it easier, not worse. And one of the things that we do with our phones all the time is we spend so much time into it that it takes us away from people that are around us that need our time. So limit that. If you have the same thing as, I go to work from 9 to 5 and you have hours for operations at work, you should have also limit hours of operations of your phone because some people now work 24/7 because when they're not at work, they're still on their phone. That is still kind of work. Even my son was telling me, Dad, even when you're with us, sometimes you're not with us because you get to that phone and before you know it, you're on your talks. And that's very hard for me to accept and hear that from my kids. But you know what? They're reaching out and telling you that's what's happening. When we see you, you're on your phone. So I had to tune out for the whole week and reassess how I am living in basically this today's modern world. How I have to limit my hours on the phone, just like you limit your hours on work when you're with your family. So some of the things we came up that was cool is when we go out and we go to dinners, leave the phones in the car. Who needs it? Who needs it? I know you can, there's always time, it can wait because family time is the most important time. Face-to-face time. Sometimes when you're with somebody and you're giving them your attention, it is very rude to go to your phone and start typing away when the person's right in front of you. These are habits we've created for ourselves. It's interesting. We've forgotten that normal manners are changed nowadays. Is it okay to be just texting in front of somebody when you're talking and having a conversation with them and doing all this? We're multitasking, but it's so often that what we do. But how is that in terms of marriage? Are you giving that person the time? What's your perception when you're with someone and you're talking to them and you're going, yeah, text, but we're not aware of that. So these are now affecting the way our manners are, right? So think about how this affects and how, but here's the beautiful thing. We thought about it. We catch ourselves, and that's everything that we do in life. We make mistakes. You got to catch yourself making that mistake. Reformat your habit. Go back to basics, saying there's a time and a place for everything. And these have become such a big part of our lives. It's no longer balance. It's taken over 90% of what you do. That's not balance anymore. Develop a way to set aside your phones, tune out, so that you are with the people around you, not in the virtual world all the time. Phones are supposed to make you better. Basics remind you of what is important and what is meaningful. Try to think about that when you're tuning in and tuning out. What's more meaningful? Texting somebody or talking to them? Pick up the phone, call. But when you're around somebody personal, face to face, put down that phone. And it's hard. It is so hard because business is everything with that. But without these things, you know what? I'm telling you, we're heading in the wrong direction. I was in a whole week of trying to reform my habits that I've developed recently because this is the way the world works. But I also refuse to develop habits that take me away from being a better person. Doug Marcaida here, Morning Coffee with Joe. I'm back on the road filming again. So hopefully all these habits and experiences we get to share again with each other. Have a good day, folks.